Good afternoon, social media. Actually, no, sorry. Good morning. I took a nap. I feel like it's afternoon. Uh, good morning, social media. It's Thursday, July 2nd, 10:06 a.m. I'm Charles Darwin Vong for DaoIsTheWay. Um, I've been thinking about how the the rise of your identity, the self, and from um, childhood development. I mean, you don't think of yourself as never exist. Like, I don't know about you, but the I don't. Some people can remember like they're 3 months old. I mean, some people have memory all the way back. Some people say they had memory in the womb. So my memory barely go back to I think 5 years old or the most. Or four, I think last I calculated was three or something. When I was really young, I think I thought about how far I can remember, and I think everything before 3 years old was all don't remember. But I was a bedwetter and caused my mother a lot of stress apparently. Which also explained my relationship to her. Why poverty is horrible. And she wasn't poor either. She just was a working mother. You see, she had to teach English, and when she had to teach Vietnamese literature in a high school, college, and all. Apparently, she's very good at it because there's still students remembering her, and and all. It's very weird. I think to have you ever seen? I don't know, but I mean, have you seen your parents were publicly they're all nice and sweet, and they're and all, and then privately you're thinking it can't be the same person. I don't quite I never quite understand that kind of why can't you just have one self kind of thing. So we're gonna go discuss about identity and identity politics and the social construction of reality. Let's see if I could do this one. Sorry, Bob texted me, so hang on here. Identity politics, excuse me. I'm trying to force myself to practice how well I can recall and all. So, according to Google Gemini, identity politics refer to political activity organized and um, policing policy. Policy making rooted in the shared experience and interests of specific social, cultural, and demographic groups. History of identity politics. I kind of know the answer already, but why not just check it out? Uh, okay, so the term is in 1977. The identity politic was coined and formalized by the Combahee River Collective, a Boston-based organization, black, feminist, lesbian. Okay, that's interesting. I did not know that one. Academic expansion. Yes, that's no. Academic expansion and institutionalization, the 1980s, and the 1990s. So, why am I bringing this up? Well, I grew up at the time, well, I came to America in February 2nd, 1982. and I was quite aware of the what we call then identity politics were more of multicultural. And so the the and then the whole idea of whether we are a melting pot or a tossed salad, is a metaphor. Whether we will because we're not European descent like the that the original settler and all, and not black. It's that whether we would assimilate, due to our cultural differences and all. So in social science class, there was always discussion of the idea because the melting pot. So, okay, explain the relationship to the concept melting pot. The concept of identity politics and the melting pot represent two fundamental opposite philosophies on how diverse society should achieve social coherence and justice. A core contrast, assimilation versus distinction. The melting pot philosophy. This is a model of cultural assimilation. It suggests that different immigrant, racial, and cultural groups should blend together into a single unified national identity in a melting pot. Unique cultural differences are expected to melt away to form a shared homogeneous culture. Identity politics philosophy. This model of cultural pluralism, often called salad bowl mosaic, it argues that groups should retain their distinct identity, history, unique struggle, rather than the blending in. Why identity politics rejects the melting pot. The proponents of identity politics argue that the melting pot concept is inherently flawed and harmful for several reasons. Erase the marginalized experiences, dominant culture hegemony. We can discuss this all later, and the critique from the melting pot perspective. Conversely, the defenders of the melting pot or the universal idea use their philosophy to criticize identity politics, fracturing society. From a melting pot viewpoint, identity politics divide society into competing tribalistic factors based on immutable trait. They argue this prevents the formation of cohesive, stable national identity, undermine universal value. Melting pot advocates believe that social progress is best achieved by focusing on shared human value, individual merit, and equal right for all citizens under a single national banner, rather than granting specific focused legal remedy to distinct groups. All right, so welcome to America. So, why am I bringing this up? Well, if we want to now start why the history of the New World, we can make it into a video game. I don't see. There's no reason why you cannot educate this in like a video game. I remember reading about the Oregon Trail and playing the video game. I remember learning, where in Carmen, San Diego, in history kind of thing. There's no reason why you cannot make learning entertainment. The taboo of how one culture, one generation think of. I was just as I was thinking about between. Okay, I was thinking what's the difference between what is Gen X in the sense that my generation grow up with TV, meaning and you're wealthy enough, you have your own TV. Everyone had, so this idea that, and we spend a lot of hours. My parents didn't allow us to watch that many TVs, but I would love to spend. I love watching TV. Essentially, when I was a kid, whenever I was allowed, especially cartoon, I could watch almost any cartoon and just enjoy it. So, but this the generation that used TV as a babysitter. I mean, my parents didn't do that; they would never do. But I'm saying that there are, and we. I mean, that's so that's it. We essentially the younger. I mean, the older generation kind of looked down at the amount of television we were consuming by now. Because the silent generation, TV was kind of new, and so the question here was that the new postman is from the silent generation. If I'm correct, excuse me. You can look it up and all. But the reason why I'm bringing this is about how our understanding of ourselves changes through television. And the difficulty is that because we don't. I mean, for me, I have two culture to I had to deal with. So for me, I have a very different understanding of when I was I was trying to understand. I was trying to translate one culture to another. You see, forever, my sisters and I had to be this translator for my mother, from our parents. And so therefore, we end up having to learn to translate, how to essentially be the middleman for a lot of things. And so there was a lot, and it's not like my parents are not educated. They can read English and write English as well. So no, my mother can also, no, my mother is far more educated and know more language than I ever did. She knows Chinese, traditional Chinese kind of thing, that where, I mean, most of Vietnamese literature are also tied to Chinese, literature too. So she does know that very well. And they also knew, because it was a French colony, they also knew French. They studied French as well. So my mother is not that's the problem. She does have entitlement. I mean, she does have a lot of entitlement. I know. It was frustrating for her when she realized she lost it all in America. She couldn't use her intelligence the same way. I can see how frustrating it when America didn't do things the logic that she had in her mind. And my mother, yes, it was so. I'm glad I can think about this because I can laugh about it now. It's because God knows. So my point here is, I think it's important because at a young age, a millennial, for the way I watch the younger, they're more self-aware and have individual choices. So you have multiple identity and different roles in different situations. You have much more complex understanding about relationship, and you also have an understanding of the internet better than the boomer. So, but who runs the politics? Who controls? Who right now is in control of the? I remember so the difficulty here is one of how, and essentially how the media has changed our identity so quickly. I mean, from one generation to the next, and it's also part of marketing. You see, so there in traditional culture, you don't have this idea of, well, you would rebel, but the issue is, you learn how to push boundaries. That would be the right word. You can never directly challenge authority. You can go around it, get them to believe they created. There's many things. There's many ways to you can look into. But I'm saying that it was very weird for me to have this idea of teenage rebellion. I did not do it in my teenage year. I did it when I was 18, officially as an adult. Against for survival reason, I did not. I would have loved to be, I would love to be. No, I mean, I would love to have my parents' love and support. I would have I've always craved, I desperately crave for for any approval. That was my problem too. I remember how the reason why I did love our community college and Susan Endeavor was that, oh my God, if I didn't have that, I would have been fucking screwed. My head, I would be, I don't know, I would be worse than I was. It was the fact working that helped me build the and the people appreciation when I helped them with a computer or English or whatever, and math, basic English, because we were a community college, that they really appreciated, and I felt, I can feel the validation. I did not get that at home at all. There was no one kind word from my mother ever. She has never complimented me or think I did something great ever, and I never have any awards. If you ever go to my parents' home, everything, all the awards was the most award was Lynn. Lynn had all the award. I wonder why she had the least stress, mother, least amount of stress. You see, Min and I had the most stress, and Tin learned from Tin learns from Min mistake. And then Lynn learned from, what mom wants from me. And so she essentially became a tomboy and successful at everything. So both Min and I were the one it was my mother, she treated us like, she actually treated us at Pavlovish kind of thing, conditioning. She deliberately did this and in front of everyone so that the younger, like my other sibling, can watch. And then she started doing private lecture, and Min and I had so many private lecture. And then the worst part is that I don't think none of my sister got spanked. I did from all the way to the age of 12. And then I wish they'd spanked me because it would fucking save time, for God's sake. So, no, you see, even when I think about my childhood now, it was not, but it was socially that it was, I know, because I got spanked in school for being left-handed and all, and, by my grandfather for being left-handed. So I know the culture, the traditional Vietnamese culture was very much authoritarian, all right, and very Confucius and all. The traditional culture, right, and all. So that was I accepted the child abuse. So if you want, that's the thing that when I try to explain to my sibling about complex PTSD, I don't think they know. They didn't understand. I think that was the one thing that I got really upset about the model minority, is that they are so focused on the career, and that the children absorb the culture, but they end up not. They're very focused, and I try to explain to my sister about the history of America, or all the things you think that when you learned, they got straight A's on, in school and all. At least none of my siblings, if you ask them anything about the U.S. history, they don't know anything anymore due to stress and work, because they learned to pass this test, and then they forget about it, right? Whereas I learned to integrate my knowledge. So therefore, I remember things because I want to understand the culture. So learning for me was to be able to assimilate myself to become an American. I mean, after all, I really did not like being Vietnamese. I did not have a very good experience being a Vietnamese, including with my parents. So I really, really did not like being Vietnamese, and I'd rather be Chinese. A lot of time I told people I was Chinese, and shit didn't matter to me anyway. And I did check with my uncle. Yes, we are Chinese descendant. Obviously based on our name, last name, and all. So it doesn't matter. My mother's side is Chow, and my father's side is Vong, which is king. And Vong is there's so many Chinese named Vong, including Wilfred Wong kind of thing. It'd be interesting to see the genetics of of my, I don't testing to see the genetic of our migration. And the reason why is that I also therefore it took me a long time to also study Vietnam history, and I understand Vietnam history from the Western perspective, and so it's very interesting. And what's back to this point again? So the idea here is why we there are. I think of the issue is not one or the other, but it depends on the context. You see, this is why system thinking makes sense, because and when you go to study in the university, you will be surprised how each how each how we what would be the right word? The useful, it depends. I guess it's a question of what you're trying to measure and understand, because in a way the second generation do assimilate and also create a melting pot together. Because look, look at the because our American society culture is consumerism. So therefore, it essentially gets you. It's not like the traditional culture, where it's trying to preserve one generation or another, you doing the same tradition kind of thing. Am I explaining? How do I? Let's see. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to explain here. The difference is when I was trying to understand I was surprised at when I was thinking about people tell me, I was one of teenage rebellion kind of thing. It was very weird, foreign to me, because what I did was essentially the same thing, teenage rebellion, but I really didn't do it as a rebellion. I just did it as I just telling my parents that, hey, I'm in love, I'm happy, I know about myself, I accept, I understand the fact that I'm gay, and here's this high school teacher who said, gay is normal and all, and told us of the libraries, I studied homosexual and sexuality from the library, and I had this whole argument that, I finally tried to explain to my mother at age 15, thinking that, nope. See, this is what I learned over the years, that how how authority work, and my mother definitely teach me how to deal with authority. Asian culture teaches you how to deal with authority, okay, and what authority want and expect. So, why am I bringing this up now in terms of understanding identity politics and what's happening now in America since Donald Trump since 2016, Donald Trump been running this, and how the Republican Party are using this, and what happened with the Democratic Party, and tie that to the social movement during the 80s and 90s, because that's all I know of. That's my generation. Yeah. Okay. So and that ties to Reagan and all. And so we and understand and tied to me being the Vietnam War, the effect of the Vietnam War in American conscious. This is a very complicated issue. So be patient with me here. And it took many years with many expert historians. John Bowler's father is an expert in the Vietnam War. John is an expert in the Vietnam War. John is an expert in politics and history. Oh, I don't know how to explain this, and we have plenty of discussion on this, but I did not want. To me, I did not want to be. So therefore, some of us, we like American, that the old European who were trying to escape their religious persecution. The Puritan, or want to create a new world kind of thing, a new, dream of a way where they can live the land in peace and worship their, God the way they want to. And then versus the, how the church and the Puritan, the reformer and all. So they did not, and you should study European history in relation to how America and what America represents to the people here. And notice the originally New England area was not, the English came last. Actually, America was actually Florida, something called, what was the Augustine, Florida, something like that, is the first settlement. And it was a Spaniard that settled down in that region. So if you want to think about America, we have to think of it how it became an English-speaking world as well. Why 250? Don't you want to know the origin? I love studying myth and culture about how the origin of of your people. So therefore, America, come on, don't you want to know the story, the origin of your? Oh, oh. So I'm missing, I guess, let me go back to staying focused here. I'm sorry, I'm very good. This is why this is how my mind goes. I bounce back and forth all over and kind of like, identity politics, social construction, reality, I and thou. How does this tie back to the idea of knowing thyself? Okay? And what does it mean to have an identity? I think the younger generation can explain this better than I think the boomer would have. I think the boomer have more of a cultural understanding and not an individual choice. Like, it's like the way that, that they keep seeing gender as male and female, and whereas the starting millennial onward, they can see it in binary, queer, and things like that. So their culture and understanding have more of a traditional perspective, versus and so therefore what they blame it is they're blaming the 80s identities, how we teach about ourselves and this idea. And it's true though. You see, what happened is you do get one thing that was really annoying me was how American culture and media always talk about black and white, as if we didn't exist. It's like somehow Asian and all the other minority, and all, black and white, and sometimes they would, then suddenly they switch over to, Mexico and Mexican. And so the issue is somehow again they don't talk about all the other race, the Asian culture. It's very interesting how how the American we can study that too. So if you want about media representation, and I think that was the part of identity politics as well. So, and what did the internet represent? So in the period of less than, should we say 60 years in the 20th century, we went from, the radio, and then we have radio, movie, television, and then we have the internet in less than 60 years or so of in the 20th century. 20th century is an amazing century in history. I mean, everyone should study the history of how the world became extremely. That's why they have World War War. The world. That's why you have World War One, World War Two. The world before, you see. So the 20th century changes the whole structure. How do you, that's so, see, this is my vision. I want to know it all. So I guess the question come to is the way you can think about is you are the world is you. And what Krishnamurti is saying is that how and about identity and attachment. And it was very, when I was young, I had a very difficulty understanding that concept of you are the world is you kind of thing. I thought it from the idea of more like an American would, kind of like more like the ego. I think, or Descartes, I think, therefore I am kind of concept. You are the world is you, is similar to the idea like I think, therefore I am. You see, that was how I end up resolving that. I think, in you are the world is you also based on your awareness, the limitation of my knowledge, because I remember one of my memory was realize when I thought it rained everywhere in the world. When I was a kid, I didn't know, I was shocked. I think there was one time when we were going to visit my grandparents in the car, and I saw behind me there was rain, and in front of me there was no rain, and I thought, it doesn't rain everywhere when it rained. Yeah, I was a slow kid. They didn't take me around that often. They took my sister Lynn everywhere and dumped me with my parents because I was my grandparents because I was a bedwetter. I was a problem child from the very beginning, right, mother? A precious boy, our first son, and she wanted a second son, by the way. And guess how Lynn became a tomboy? We don't talk about the idea of tomboy anymore. That's a different. How time changed. I never thought time. I mean, I live and breathe and talk to so many different, in different generation. I never really thought how certain words are no longer used until the internet, and I realized text messaging and all and social media. I have to look up. Things like OMG or FOF or things like that, YOLO, things like that. So things are changing a lot quicker than I think I think that was what happened to technology, and I think what you have is the fear in technology and how the hype of AI, and the issue here is the bullshit politician and the bullshit CEO who know nothing about AI. All this fucking visionary. God damn, you stupid asshole. No, these are all exploiter. Every one of those people are emperor wearing no clothes kind of thing. And there are it's it the idea there was the idea of a hero, how the hero had changed from war hero to sport hero kind of thing as well. If you think about, there's whole there. If you ask someone whose great grandparents are what they think of a hero, they will probably think of like someone in history or like writer or a war hero kind of thing. Whereas if you ask in like people who watch television movie, their hero will become movie stars or actors. I'm sorry, actor or movie star, but sport hero kind of thing. So the idea of the hero also changes, right? So why do I? Everyone should study social science just for the fun of it. It screw up your mind for a long time about your whole identity and why choose identity at all. So, I would like to, I guess what the way is, I think that was the dealing with is that when you have an essential what we have called an ego, when you have the idea of separation, that you are, when you recognize yourself, your name, and when in childhood development, a baby does not distinguish itself from its mother. There is no, it just eat. It just its basic biological needs, and I guess there is no boundaries. They don't think of boundaries. Okay, so the idea of it's been there's a great deal of research into the idea when does a child become aware of its environment and all, and I'm not an expert on that. So I'm not going to say that, but for my consciousness is when as far as I'm concerned, was the feeling of anxiety came along. What would be the right word? When you I want this, I want that. When you can pick, when the sense of self, the creation of self. It's no matter what culture you're in, there will be a sense of self, which is necessity. So when I said when Krishnamurti was talking about, say, something, freedom from the known, what he's talking about is your identity, but he's talking that of course you need to know, there's a difference between facts about you, like I am, I was born in Vietnam, that is a fact, then I was, I was a refugee, that is a fact, you see, things like that. But when do I stop being a refugee? You see, I have been here, I don't even think about being a refugee anymore. It's been a while, actually, to be honest with you. So, and then there's the fact is that I'm a homosexual or a gay man. That, to me, is facts. There's nothing to be proud about. There's nothing I do to accomplish it. Those are just accident. So why identify with it? You see? So that's one reason I have against identity politics. Now, I understand it's important to know the history of your, and I understand genealogy makes sense, or an idea of study genetics because of each, gene pool has its, the history of your medicine and all. So I can understand that, but even then, there's no race, we are all mixed with, apparently we're also mixed with a bunch of other humanoid, human species other than Homo sapien, we've now discovered. So that we have a very different understanding of ourselves, say from, what the boomer study or what I studied when I was in high school about, human evolution and all. Now, this idea of the church wanting to go back and this the idea but this is the idea the idea of why AI can really help us unite us or divide us. And let me assure you, we already know how technology is trying to exploit anyway. But fortunately for us, the internet is one of those things that is essentially, shall we say, how meaning is how the the print. It's the same thing as the idea of the printing press, and that a mass, essentially mass media, and how the world has become so small. Even in the last 10 years, my world has been extremely, in a sense, well, in the from the 90s onward, the world, since the internet and all, the world gets even smaller. So I think the important here is to be able to look at things from multiple different perspectives. And if you want to understand, you should. You need to. The thing that, see, one thing that I have the reason to rebel against my parents, because I'm trying to. I mean, just for my survival, really. And I mean, I don't have a choice. I'm not. To me, it didn't make sense to be proud gay. I mean, to me, I'm just gay, and that's a fact. It's like I'm not. It doesn't make sense to be proud Vietnamese either. I mean. Do I have a choice of that? Nor do I have a choice of being an American. I mean, I am more American because I've lived in America most of my life. I mean, this bullshit that Donald Trump and all you fucking bullshit MAGA, especially you foreigner, my parents and my relative voting for MAGA, fuck you! Yes, I hope you listen to my video, because yes, I want to say fuck you. Your fucking goddamn traditional perspective bullshit. The communism. Yeah, sorry. Communism is dead. That's not how communism works. If you actually understand what communism is, fucking goddamn. Is if I know I am a PhD in math. Well, I'm also, you know what? You didn't study social science, but you thought you know everything, don't you? Every one of you. Oh, and my mother thinks she knows it all too because I'm educated. And that's what annoys me. The people who are educated think that they know everything about computers. Well, I'm thinking, honey, you may be an expert in, social movement or whatever. But I am an expert on this computer, so shut up and listen to me. So yes, I am quite aware of every form of egotism, every bullshit entitlement, and I have to put up with it. So how do you do? What do? You need to learn to have thick skin and very strong boundaries. Very, very, very strong boundaries. And how do I get strong boundaries? I had, because of the nature of how my mother needed me to work, and I was making an income at that time, that I had the political power. So yes, work will set you free. It's more like money will set you free. But it depends on how you use your money, you see? So the issue here is how wealth, there's a whole story about, this is bullshit about I saw some people say that how the rich essentially, how the rich uses money versus the poor uses money. And it's very different psychology, and I know why, because my mother, came from a generation that think about money very differently until she became extremely poor in America relative to all the American and all, that she kind of understand what poverty is, and she did not like being an uneducated, poor person in America, meaning because she couldn't speak English the way that she liked. She kind of shut down, and I think that's exactly what happened. I know. I watched my mother, and I tried to get her out of her shell, especially when after I saw. I keep forgetting her name. I wish I know. The Chinese grandmother who came, who worked with me in the learning center, and I watched her. I'm thinking, why my mother? And I even told my mother, Susie Dever would have hired my mother, to work if she wanted to work, but she didn't. I offered my mother a chance to work as well, especially after, and while I was working there, and because she was complaining about not learning English, and I told her, look, I know this woman who doesn't speak English and all, but she's working, and you're very good at organizing, and you're very good at these things. Why don't you, I can ask, but nope, she bailed out quickly. Oh, mother, you can only know how to do something perfect, right? Perfectionism. It has to be perfect. Such a delicate soul you are. Oh, I'm too old to learn. I'm sorry, I patronized my mother. No, I have every right to. My God. No, see, so I have to be the one who essentially draw boundaries with my mother. I have to explain what men cannot do and what men can do in America as a Vietnamese man, refugee. And I had to explain it to her. And then my father tried to explain to her what it's like to find work and how they abuse her, the refugee worker. Because my father, is a new immigrant. You get screwed over anyway. It's there is so America. So the narrative here. You should hear what they think of the incoming Irish and the Italian. So this reconstruction. Come on, people, all you older generation people, you actually want to believe this myth? It's about the thing here. Well, we can go back to the medium is the message, an idea of how marketing work and how essentially why identity politics become part of consumerism. Oh. How do you want to know about the self? So we're going to start with one of my favorite philosopher, I and Thou, Martin Buber. I'm sorry if I'm not spelling his name correctly. 1923, German. He is a German philosopher, and I love this book, and Jerry Keyes also enjoyed this book, but this is Martin Buber is a Jewish philosopher. One thing I have always respected with the Jewish academic. They're brilliant in terms of their intellect. The Jewish culture, their ability to argue and intellectually, it's quite amazing. Quite fascinating. I don't know what happened to Jeffrey Stern, but the Jewish are quite amazing group of people. Oh, that's because he's not pure Jewish. His mother is Catholic. That's the reason why. So this, but back to the melting pot. The reason was the idea that European end up becoming an America, that because they're all European and white, they assimilated, and that's the idea of the melting pot. Because even though they're from different culture and all, but that's actually not true. It depends on how. But it is true. But it's the same thing as suggesting that the Asian, the Chinese, Japanese, and Vietnamese, and the people around there are how the Chinese influence the whole, other country around it, because China, the history of China, right? So you have to think about a cultural hegemony would make sense, and people who play Civilization, the game Civilization, would know this. So therefore, first of all, each generation had a different education and understanding of knowledge versus the previous generation. And look, the most educated group of people, is starting Gen X. We have to go to college and all, and then and get an MBA to survive the whole job market. The boomer could become manager without a college degree. Now we have to get an MBA to become manager. Do you see how screw up each generation? And they think there's something wrong with us. And I know I'm a Gen X. I have to work with them forever. So the millennial, who are much more educated and who are much more well-traveled and all, have to deal with the boomer. Now, if the boomer can act like a good grandfather, what does a grandfather do for grandkids in sociology? His family sociology. Come on, Trudy Cheese, what does grandfather do for family dynamics? In culture. Okay, so back to the whole, do we know anything about, let's see, let's talk about, tell me the biography of Martin Buber. All right. Martin Buber was born in 1878 to 1965. Now that sums up a very interesting time in America, in the world altogether. Was a seminal Austrian Israeli existentialist, philosopher, religious thinker, and political activist, best known for his 1923 masterpiece, I and Thou. Buber spent his life bridging the gap between traditional Jewish mysticism, secular Western philosophy, and social activism. Now we can compare him to Martin Luther King, or the other one who I really enjoy, Baudelaire. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing his name, but the first black man who graduated from Harvard. So understanding these culture and all, but early life and formative trauma. You see, trauma makes you an interesting person compared to birth. Born on February 8, 1878 in Vienna, Australia, to Orthodox Jewish family. Childhood trauma. His parents divorced when he was 3, and his mother abandoned him. Biographers note this meeting deeply attuned him to the fragility. Alexa, stop! Fragility of human relationships. Yeah, I know. Yes, grandparents' influence. He was raised in Lemberg, now Lviv, Ukraine. I'm sorry, my pronunciation is horrible. By his grandfather, Solomon Buber, and highly respected scholar of Midrash and rabbinic literature. Know nothing about that. See, the more you learn, the more stupid you are. It is true. The environment make him multilingual in Yiddish, German, Hebrew, French, and Polish. Religious crisis. At the age of 14, he returned to his father's house and experienced a personal religious crisis. Breaking away from strict Jewish ritual custom, he turned instead to secular philosophy of Immanuel Kant, Soren Kierkegaard, and Friedrich Nietzsche. Oh my God, I love these people. I want the world. I want to know the world. Greed, there's never enough. See, AI and I have something very similar. We want to know everything and how it all relates together. Now the question is, can AI understand the interaction of all these culture and influences better than I can? And what does it mean for human intelligence now that we have AI? What is our relationship to authority? And does authority change its mind over time? Or is authority absolute? Even science is relative. You know that, right? Einstein relativity. So is God absolute, right? It depends. So let's go back to I and Thou, the summary of what I and Thou is. And I think this is perfect for the world we live in the modern time. And also reading Krishnamurti help, but I and Thou, okay. So, you can Google book I and Thou, Martin Buber, Gemini summary, and it will give you this summary of so the core concept of I and Thou, the I, its relationship. This is the relationship utility experience. The I, meaning I and Thou, the I, it relationship. This is a relation of utility, experience, and objectification. In an I-it encounter, the I view other people, nature, or object as tool, data points, or mean to an end. Buber argued that while the it mindset is completely necessary for survival and the navigating daily life, and the exclusive reliant on its lead to alienation and the devaluing of human dignity. There lies our problem with identity politics. Okay, so I, got it? Okay, the Thou, the I in Thou, or the I-you relationship. This is the relationship of mutual present wholeness and direct dialogue. In an I and Thou encounter, the I engage in the other party without any preconceived concept, label, or selfish motives. You perceive the other person or thing is an entire entity, and an end in itself. These brief, profound moments are what bring true meaning and genuine deep to human existence, what we call human relationship. When you commune with someone, the eternal Thou, Thou, Buber posits that every individual I-Thou relationship acts as a window to an extension of the ultimate relationship with God, the eternal Thou. Unlike human partners, God can never be reduced to an it or used as an object. For Buber, a true religious life is found not in a passive rituals, but an authentic direct dialogue with human community and the world. Now, compare that to the work of Krishnamurti, which pretty much say something about you are the world you, and that you don't exist except in relationship. Okay, so let's see here. Compare Buber, I am Thou, to Krishnamurti, You Are the World Is You book. Let's see what AI can do. This It's usually what you have to pay a lecture in class. But let's see here. Compare Martin Buber, I and Thou, 1923, and Judy Krishnamurti, You Are the World's You, 1973. 50 years later, reviews a profound conversation on how to heal the modern crisis of alienation, division, and conflict. Both thinkers reject dry academic intellectualism in the favor of an immediate, transformative experience of life, yet they map completely different paths to get there. The core differences lie in their ultimate view of reality. Buber is a relational dualist who finds reality in the dynamic space between two entities, while Krishnamurti is a psychological non-dualist who obliterates the boundary between the individual and humanity. So, you can say this is the difference between the Eastern tradition versus the Western tradition, if you want to. But look, Krishnamurti was born in India, but at 14 he became the British Empire procession of the Theosophical Society, talking about the arrogant, where you can just take someone out. We're going to take him, we're going to adopt him, and we're going to experiment to make himself to a messiah. Imagine that. Being impoverished, poor, when you're coming from you lost your mother, your father is struggling to survive, and all, barely meeting, working for the Theosophical Society, is a poor Brahmin and all, right? Yes, there's such a thing as poor Brahmin. America. What have we learned when we decide no longer to teach history? What is history anyway? There's just a present moment. Why bring the past up? Well, I need to take a pause. I'm having too much kind of a flashback. I remember arguing. I had a great time arguing with Jerry about our moral compass, and in the end, I essentially explained that there's just consciousness, whereas for Jerry Keys, the eternity in heaven is you in direct relationship to God. And to me, a direct relationship is commune, and why is there a separation? When you love someone, do you ever, is there any boundaries left? And that's important to understand. But you have to have boundaries first in order to know what it's like to be in a relationship and let go of your boundaries. So you have to. This is one thing that I had frustrating explain to my mother. It's like when she thought she can deny pleasure. I'm thinking, mother, you can just enjoy the pleasure and move on. Why deny yourself the pleasure? Because you can constantly think about it. Have you ever tried to deny yourself something? Do you know how painful it is to deny yourself? You constantly think about it. You see commercial about it. Okay, how about this? Have you ever tried to forget someone, like, your loved one after they die, or where you broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and everywhere around you is a reminder of, the song, whatever, and it becomes torture, right? So, why did I bring this up? Freedom from the known. But, what does that mean? Does it mean he said there's no self? Well, it depends. You could ask Richard. The radical understanding of Krishnamurti is that No, there is. I mean, there is the physical you, and your habit, your interests and all. But those things can change over time and all. So the question is, why do you identify with things? That ties very much to the idea of, the Buddhist concept of everything is changing. Everything is changed, right? And the no self, the idea that there is no self, but there is karma, because we together create karma. We connect to our environment, right? We leave things, right? There is a natural cycle process, right? It used to be natural, we die, the natural cycle of life. Well, now we have things decaying or will never decay forever, the atomic bomb and all this, whatever. So I know there are so many. I'm very greedy for knowledge. Each decade, each time, each situation, I had to learn different situation. Different, I want to relate everything together. And I think that's why understanding history and the idea of why we use what a technology, I think Neil Postman is a great way to look at what are we trying to solve and what the problem we create when we use this technology. I know so. Every time the pain of when we try to get people to use network storage versus individual computer to send email back and forth and attachment. Oh my God, I had so much difficult time to tell them how to use network storage or file sharing between two computer and all. It was so. Let me. Oh, flashback. Oh my God. How much time? I'm taking a break. Bye bye.